Hey guys, right, this is going to be a bit of an informal video, because I think recently I've been talking about, well, before I moved anyway, I've been talking about, album reviews and album overviews and vinyl collection videos, and just these kind of videos that haven't really been talking about my kind of musical taste, or, you know, what I think about certain albums, what I think about this, what I think about that. It's been about, you know, me trying to big up an album, I've been trying to kind of show an album and talk about it, and I'm not very good at doing that. But what I think I'm good at doing is kind of just talking personally about what I like and why I like it, rather than taking an album, listening to it, and trying to pick out what's good about it and what's not good about it, because I'm just not very good at that, you know. So, as a very unscripted, raw kind of video, I'm going to be talking about my top 5, give or take, not really in any order, but just 5 albums from the 70s that I just really, really like. Now, I might as well get the 2 on this list that I have on vinyl out, because... or not, Well, you already know what one of them is anyway. Okay, let's talk, shall we? Anyways, I'm not really going to count, per se, but I'll definitely talk about the albums and why I like them, and I'm going to try and make this a brief kind of video, because I don't really want to take it over, you know, the usual time span that everyone just kind of leaves and, you know, gets bored. Anyways, definitely on the lower end of, if I was going to make a list, this would be on the lower end, because it's one of my favorite albums. But as for the time period, you know, the 70s, and there was just so much going on, it's kind of outmatched by a lot of the other things on this album, and that's this album. I showed you it in the vinyl update video. It turns out it's not the 40th edition. It's just a kind of a different vinyl color edition by a bootleg company, actually, by Klimt, which I think is a bootleg. But either way, I like the. I've showed you that. But really, the reason I love this album is because it has this kind of half and half feel. I mean, it's a progressive rock record, but it doesn't feel as if it's trying to be too serious. I mean, if you think about progressive rock records, you've got 2112, which is not on this list. You've got, you know, these big, long concept albums which drag out the same kind of song in many different parts, and a lot of people have tried to do that. 2112 is just the example. But this album's got 9 Feet Underground, which takes up an entire side, but it doesn't drag on that long. I think the track is 19 minutes long, maybe? I can actually check right here. I can quickly check. Go to CA. It's 22 minutes and 40 seconds, so it's not dreadfully long, but it is there. I mean, you have this long kind of concept track, but it has a lot of instrumental stuff going for it, and it changes throughout. It's got, if I'm right, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got 8 parts to the song, which are all completely different, and the most famous, I suppose, parts of the song are the last 2, Dissociation and 100% Proof, which are kind of, you know, the big parts of that song. So you can pick your favourite part of the song. You could just say that I like 9 Feet Underground and leave it at that. But then you've got the first side, which has got, you know, everything from Golf Girl, you know, to In the Land of Grey and Pink. And that's just kind of a proper 70s rock kind of feel to it. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be too serious prog rock. It just wants to be, you know, Golf Girl's a song about, you know, just a girl and a golf. It's a golf girl. That's what the song's about, you know. It's not trying to be too serious. And I mean, In the Land of Grey and Pink is about, you know, I think it's like goblins and, you know, it's not really goblins, but it's a fantasy story, you know? It's not a long fantasy story, but it's a fantasy story in itself, and it covers a lot of kind of colourful kind of things in the song without trying to be too serious, which is what I love about the album. You know, the first side is not too serious, it's just nice, kind of upbeat, catchy, colourful 70s rock, and then on the second side you've got the long concept kind of piece, which is very easy to enjoy. Enough about that album. I said I didn't want to drag out, but the second one I don't have this on vinyl anymore anyway. I did have a copy of this about a year ago, but I don't know where it went. I really don't know. I kind of sorted through my records, and this must have got sorted in somewhere and thrown out, because I did get rid of a lot of them. And I'm kind of annoyed at that, because it's a really good album, and it's I'll try and put it up somewhere like right now, and it's Selling England by the Pound by Genesis, and in my opinion it's the best album by the original Genesis with Peter Gabriel, before Phil Collins came along and pretty much just ruined it. I don't like Phil Collins' Genesis. You know, it took away from everything that made Genesis Genesis, and the reason I love this album, it's the 5th studio album by Genesis, and it kind of feels different, because Genesis has really always been known for that kind of prog rock style and very meaningful lyrics and just bringing in all these kind of metaphors, but this album does it really well, because the first 2 tracks, you know, they talk about, you know, they talk about so many topics that were relevant at the time in the 70s, and but they do it in such a metaphorical way. They don't ever just blatantly come out and just say what the problems are. They kind of set the scene using metaphors, using like anecdotes. I mean, the best thing I could say, if you want to kind of know more about that, is to probably go check out what's his name? I don't know. There's a guy on YouTube. I'm forgetting his name. I think his name's Darren Locke, maybe. He does prog reviews. He has a live listen of this album, and he talks a lot about what makes this album great in that video. So maybe I'll link that below if I want to, I guess. And I've been listening to this album quite a lot recently, and what I love about it is the first track is so medieval sounding. It just seems to have that medieval feel going for it, and I love that. Just the old style, kind of simplistic but yet folky, and it's great. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say about this album, apart from the fact that if you haven't heard it, you should probably hear it. And I'm a lawnmower. I don't know. Anyways, this next one, you might be a bit... If you know a lot about 70s rock, you might not know this album. Mainly because it's from a band that's not from Britain. They are British, but they're not technically from Britain. They're a Californian band. And this album's not really prog rock, but it's very psych, and it's very 70s rock. So it kind of fits into the prog rock style, but it's more jazz fusion than progressive rock. But argue all you want, I like this album as a 70s rock album. I don't really know if it's progressive rock or not. You can bicker amongst yourselves about that, but the album is Sufficiently Breathless by Captain Beyond, and I hate myself for not having this on vinyl, and this is my next acquisition, is going to get this album on vinyl, because this album is so fucking good. If you've never listened to this album, and you're kind of a 70s rock fan, or a rock fan in general, or a jazz fusion fan, go check this out, because it's got so much good content packed into it, and I think there's only 8 tracks on it. And there's 4 tracks a side, and there's 2 sides. It's not a gatefold, it's just 1. And I don't know, it's so good. I mean, everything on the first track is just a fucking gem. Everything is just perfect on the first side. And I don't know, I think I'd give this album a 10 out of 10 if I was going to rate it, but everything on the first track is perfect. Bright Blue Tango is probably one of my favourite songs of all time. It's catchy as hell. Drifting as Bass has that really, really kick-ass Dun, 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 you know that one, and it has the really cool keyboards in the background as well, or the what's it called, the it's not Mellotron, is it? No, I'm not even going to go into that. I'm going to get this wrong. And as for the second track, you know, that's very very short. The second side seems to me anyway, mainly just because it's got Voyager's Past Travelers on it, which is only like a minute long. So, I don't know. It seems very short, this album. I think it's only like 30 minutes long, but I love it. Starglow Energy is probably my favourite song on the album, just because it's so mellow and so psych rock, but it's so soft and nice sounding. Very reminiscent of folk rock from that time, which is great. I love this album. If you don't like this album, then you can go away and never watch movies ever again, because this album is beautiful. Anyways, next album. You know this album. If you know 70s, you know this album. This album is big. This is big 70s stuff we're getting into now. This is not really considered Pink Floyd's best album, by any means. It's my favourite Pink Floyd album. Everyone loves Obscured by Clouds. I don't care. Everyone loves fucking Animals, which is going to be on this list instead of this, but I had to think, and I thought this is going to be it. Everyone loves Dark Side. This is my Pink Floyd album. And as much as I love I Am Heart Mother, this album takes the cake. And it's, I should tell you what it is. It's metal. Don't have it on vinyl. I do want it on vinyl. And I don't know what to say about this album apart from the fact that it is just beautiful. It's kind of like this album. In what I was saying about this album, when it's got the first side, has got the shorter tracks, and it does the kind of, you listen to a couple of short tracks, and you know, you get a feel for what the album sounds like, and then all of a sudden the second side just hits you with this huge, long, masterful, sculpted track full of great instrumental bits and great lyrics and great this and that, and you know, honestly, I think this album is probably one of my favourite albums in the 70s. If the number one album on this list, which is going to be next, didn't exist, then metal would be my number one. And I will say it every single time. Waters wrote Saint-Tropez. He performed Saint-Tropez on his own, if I remember rightly. I remember someone was telling me how it's Saint-Tropez is, you know, the acoustic is all Waters, and I love Saint-Tropez. Saint-Tropez is just the most, when you listen to this album, you get this kind of weird feeling, you know, One of These Days, Pillow Wind's Fearless, all those three songs, it's got this very mellow vibe to it and a sort of kind of cold feel, where you get that with a lot of Pink Floyd tracks, but this album feels really cold, and all of a sudden there's the dun 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 dun, and then it's just like, what? And then, you know, I reach for a peach, and then, you know, that sitting on the fourth track of this album after those three tracks, and then you get Seamus, and then you get Echoes. That bridging track was unlike anything I've ever heard in my life. I listened to it, and I was getting so into it, and then Saint-Tropez kicks in, and I'm just like, I love this for some reason. I don't even understand why. I should probably be grudging for this, because it's cutting in half the album with this kind of, you know, mellow kind of, I don't know if it's a satirical track, I don't know, but it's nice and warm and happy. I don't know, I like that track. It's probably my favourite on the album just because it's hard not to like, but Seamus is probably my favourite track on the album, even though it's the shortest. Then Echoes, then Pillow of Winds, and then Fearless, then One of These Days. Anyways, enough of metal. Everyone knows how good that album is. I mean, it's got favourable reviews, but they kind of mixed. Number one, my favourite album of the 70s, not even contested, is good old Nick Drake's Pink Moon. I don't know what to say about this album. It's hard to sum up. Apart from the fact that this album has so much influence on, like, every folk artist to come after it. and it's so much story behind this album as well. It's one of those things where if you dig deep enough into the album, you will find so many things linking back to Nick Drake's life at the time and all the shit he was going through. And all I can think of is just how amazing this album is, and how much recognition Nick Drake did not get for this album at the time. And the fact that it was Nick Drake's final studio album, and he went out on this. I don't think you could ask for anything better than that. I mean, Five Leaves Left is probably my favourite Nick Drake album. But unfortunately it's not from the 70s. I don't think it is anyway. Let me have a look. I could be just completely stupid. Yeah, it's from 69. Okay, so I was right there. It's not from the 70s, but Five Leaves Left is definitely like a better album in kind of content-wise, but this album has this kind of haunting feel to it. It's a very haunting album, it's a very cold album, and then you kind of think about how Nick Drake died not long after this album came out, and it's a shame. It's a real damn shame. I mean, you have people like Bob Dylan making album after album after album after album, and this guy never got the chance to do that. And this guy made 3 sold albums. This one probably gets the most praise out of all of them, and I don't know, it's 28 minutes long, 28 minutes and 22 seconds long, and boy, does it feel like you get hit with every single emotion in that. You kind of feel happy, and you kind of feel sad, and you kind of feel, you feel bad for Nick Drake, and you kind of feel happy because look, there's all this amazing music that he did make in his lifetime. And I don't know what to say about this album apart from the fact that it's just fucking excellent. It's the #1 folk album. Solomon's Circle by Pentangle. I don't remember what that album's called, but Pentangle's albums are up there. Bob Dylan's albums are obviously up there. But Nick Drake, man, Nick Drake. If Nick Drake was alive today, I would just be like trying to do anything I could to meet the guy. He is like the most fascinating musician I've ever, like, this album makes me want to dig in and just think and find out like what Nick Drake's life was like, because he's like the hero of every aspiring musician, because this guy made 3 albums that no one really paid attention to at the time, but he's become this folk icon. And that's really all I need to say about this album. I mainly talked about how much I love Nick Drake, but this album, if you've never heard this album and you like kind of acoustic music, or you like folk music, or you like heavy lyrical content, then this is your album. This is the album of the 70s for me, and I don't think I can ask for a better album to have on vinyl, because, when the internet's down, or I'm bored, or I'm just trying to get away from, everyday kind of life, I can slap that record on, 28 minutes of pure bliss, and I'll be happy with that. Anyways, guys, I'm glad I got to talk about some of my favourite albums, rather than, having to listen to an album and kind of critique it, even though I'm not really big on that kind of genre, or big on that kind of band, or big on that kind of songs on the album, because I don't know what to think of an album half the time. But these albums, without a doubt, I know these albums inside out, and maybe I'll talk about some of my favourite albums again. Not mainly just from different eras, I just thought I'd think about the 70s because it's my favourite. But, yeah, honourable mentions as well. Obviously, Five Leaves Left didn't make it on the list because 60s, and In the Court didn't make it on the list because 69. Jesus, 1969 was a good year for music. Wow. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.